Hey, this is Andrew Brown. In this video, we're going to work with an LLM. In some of these videos, I'm going to use Azure Open AI Studio. In some of them, I'm going to use Azure AI Studio. Technically, Azure AI Studio is new, but it's in preview. Maybe they'll get rid of OpenAI service, but just in case that is the case, I'm going to go ahead and in this video, we're going to use Azure AI Studio. Now, I've spun up a hub previously in West US, but the first thing we might want to do is just look at model availability in Azure AI Studio, because that's going to affect what we're able to utilize. And somewhere here, here we go, we can see what models we can use. So if we are in West US, we have Turbo, and we have 35 Turbo Instruct. So we have quite a few options there. Okay. So I think where I would like to deploy, and notice like there's a lot in Sweden, but I think that I would like to work in West US because I've already launched one up there. But if we run into an issue, we can also have East US. All right. It depends on what we want to do, because like there are some here like Turbo Instruct. This is a model that is already prepped to accept instructions and do really well, whereas this is more of a generic model. So it really depends on what you want to utilize. But anyway, I'm going to go and switch over to West US. So right now, it thinks I'm in the wrong place. So I'm going to go over to portal.azure.com. And from here, we are going to navigate over to Azure AI Studio. And here we have a hub already. And I'm going to enter that hub. And so once we have our hub, now we can go to the model catalog and start launching a service. And we do have playgrounds, but I recommend that you go and always scope things to a project. I'm going to let it create a project based on my name because I do not care here today. And we'll go ahead and create that project and give it a moment. And if you do create a project, you're going to see a lot more options available. And I think that's what we want to do. So we'll give it a moment there to provision. All right, so now our project is ready, and you'll notice there's a lot more options here on the left-hand side. But yeah, we want to start working in the chat. And this, of course, is a playground that is very similar to OpenAI. So OpenAI is a company that is partnered with Microsoft, not necessarily owned by Microsoft, but they have their own playground where you can work with a large language model before you actually go ahead and use it programmatically. And so these things are very similar. So just understand that it is a very similar experience. So the first thing we'll need to do is actually set up a deployment. So we can go to our model catalog and we can see there are a lot of options here. I want to point out that if you have yet to do so, if you want to work with a model, if you want to work with a family of models like OpenAI, you have to submit a request. It might take 48 hours to a week, and then you'll be able to utilize it. If this happens to you, just understand that submit it once for any of the GPT products, and just check in a few days and see if it becomes available to you, because they're not very good at communicating. But it was a very unusual process there, but I eventually did get access to the model catalog. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff here. And I'll try something else other than just GPT, but for the exams, you just need to know GPT, but I figured it'd be fun to try something else out. I wish they would just tell us what models are actually available for our region, so we don't have to like try to launch it and find out we can't do it, but that's okay. So I'm going to launch, see, it looks like we have Turbo Instruct, but I'm pretty sure we don't. But we'll go with GPT 3.5 Turbo. Now there's, of course, newer models, but it really depends on when you go here what your deployment model is. So if we go here, we might not have particular options. So here we have global batch, standard, and provision manage. So I just want to show you here that there are 4 different types of deployment type. We have global batch, global standard, standard, and provision. So global batch is where you are going to send workloads to the API and they'll return back way later, okay? And so I assume that makes it very cost effective, but the idea is that you're not going to get the results right back right away. Then you have global standard. So this is where it is globally available. Then you have one that is standard, where it's just regionally available. And then you have provisioned. For whatever reason, the cost for regional is more expensive than standard. So if you want to just take a look here at the pricing, we'll go here. The pricing goes to the same page. If we go down here below, We have global and regional, and notice that some in the regional have an additional cost to it. Okay, so just be aware of that. But today we are working with Turbo, and you can see Turbo is very, very inexpensive, but it might not be available in specific types of deployments, okay? There is also provision, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence what the cost of that is, so I'm just going to stay away from it here because I don't want to cause myself to have a large bill and then my co-founder, Andrew, also named Andrew, is like, hey, what's going on? So I'm just going to choose standard here. If you're uncomfortable with any kind of spend, just watch and learn, but I'm going to go ahead and deploy this here today. So these models don't take super long to deploy. So here it is. And we'll go over to our chat playground. And let's go see if we can work with this just yet. So I'm not seeing it. It's not aware of the deployment. This is Azure for you, so just give it a hard refresh, as I know we have deployed it. And the UI here is a little bit different than Azure AI Open Studio. So there it is now. Okay, great. And so we have our system message, and this is where you're going to ground the agent so that it knows what it is. I say agent, but I really should say LLM model, but technically it is an agent here. And so what we want to do is we want to establish what it is. So right now, like I'm learning Japanese, and so I might want to prepare this agent to tell it that it is a Japanese teacher. So let's say you are a Japanese teacher, language teacher, right? Language. Okay, language teacher. You are teaching people that do not speak Japanese, but English. So instruct in English. So that's one way that you can write your system message. And so that's one of the easiest ways. Different models prefer different kinds of structures, but this will work as a start. Okay, and so we have our system message here. And sometimes you have to apply changes. So we'll click apply changes. And so that way it will take effect. Okay, I think it's there now. And so now what we can do is we can go ahead and talk to this. So, hello, how are you? Right? And we'll see what happens. Okay, so not exactly what I wanted to do, but what we'll do is I'll tell it to like, so please be ready to instruct me. Let's like, so when I first talk to you, please ask me about my language goals. Okay, so we'll see if it can understand that a little bit better. Remember, this is GPT-35 Turbo, so it's not as intelligent as GPT-4. And so I'm going to go ahead and apply those changes, and we'll see what we get here. And so now it is updated again. So hello, and let's see if it takes that. Here we go. Hello, what are your language goals? Are you looking to improve your Japanese? Yes. Okay. Great. What specifically would we like to focus on here? And so we can say listening. All right, and so you're getting an idea of prompt engineering. This is just the start of it. Now, I don't like to format my documents this way. I like to do it this way. I like to say role, profession. Okay. Japanese language teacher. And then we could say outputted format. Or we could say, yeah, output, or we could say like tone. We say tone, we say rude and concise. And then we could say something like output format. And here we would say, we would do something like always bold every other word. Okay, and then we could say instructions. When first greeted, when you receive your first message, or direct user towards Japanese learning goals. And so this requires a lot of attempts and work to make a prompt template or prompt document work really well for you. I'm gonna just clear the chat here because we are starting over, and I'll just say hello, and let's see if it works with that. Okay, what do you want? I want. Aren't you supposed to do something? Okay. Yes, I teach Japanese. What's your problem? Oh, right, because it's rude. I would like to learn Japanese, right? Because it was talking rudely to me. Well, good for you. What's your goals for Japanese? I don't know. Do you want to travel? We'll say travel, right? Cool. So you can see that just by doing this, we're getting the same thing. So whether you want to have it more conversational or whatever, it's up to you. These prompt documents can get really large. If you really want it to do really well, you can give it example prompts. Different kinds of models will have different kinds of syntax. I don't know if OpenAI has any GPT 3.5 prompt example format syntax. Sometimes there's like a syntax you have to use to effectively prompt it. And I know we're looking at an older model, but here notice that they might suggest a format. So I'm not necessarily seeing one here, but what I'm talking about is like, if let's say we use something like Cohere, and we go to its documentation, and go Cohere, documentation, and we were to go to somewhere like docs. I'm just trying to show you what I mean about like formatting a doc. Okay, so, oh, is this the docs? Oh, I guess they changed it. It didn't look like this before. I'm a little bit confused. But what I'm looking for here is like if we go to prompt engineering, I do not like this new format. Try this again. Cohere, documentation. Is that really the new docs? It is. And so in here they talk about prompt engineering. Maybe I can find examples. So I'll just say Cohere XML prompt examples. Constructing prompts. We'll go down here to examples. Well, they're not really showing it, but basically what I'm trying to say here is that they might do something below and just say like, we'll say like prompt. What a terrible example here. Prompt, and then inside of that, we would then have like question and answered. So the idea is that you tell what's a good prompt and what's a bad prompt. And so that's something that we might want to do here. So I'm just trying to think of how we could structure that. So I'm going to just say like good prompt examples. And here I'll go like, hey, loser. Oh, so like, for example, we'll just say user, and we'll say assistant. Because remember that we are the user, we're the one inputting stuff, and the assistant is the one that's talking back to us. And so I'm hoping that this model is going to pick up on what that means. And so we'll say user, hello, and here we'd say, you woke me up. Or so I'm trying to think of something rude. So hello, and maybe we get a bit of help here. And I have Sonnet here on the left-hand side. I'm going to say, I need help creating prompt examples for chat or for GPT 3.5. Okay, and so I'm using a Turbo. So I'm using a chatbot I keep saying chatbot, but these are chat agents. They're not bots. But I'm going to try to use it to help me generate some out. And I'm going to give an example. So this is what I want. And so I'm going to say user, assistant, for format. Here is my prompt example information to help me generate this out. And we're trying to use a more intelligent agent to work with a dumber agent here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this here. Okay, and hit enter. I'll just say, give me 10 examples. Let's see if we can do it. Okay, but you aren't providing the assistant. Yeah, there we go. Okay, but I don't want these numbered, and please put assistant on its own line. So you can see like how I could have made a prompt document to tell it how to help me make prompts. And so I'm kind of getting a format. So can you teach me more about basic Japanese? And so here are some examples that we have here. And we'll go over to here and we will place this down below here. And these are good prompt examples, right? Now it doesn't have bolding, so we cannot see that here. And also, how does it know that it can bold? So that one's kind of useless for the outputted format. So we might want to change this and say, always provide a word bank always provide a word bank, okay? So that might be something that we might want to suggest there. So I'm going to go here and just break these into separate lines a little bit. So here we have user assistant. And honestly, I don't really like these examples. So I'm going to go here and just say, hello. And then this assistant will just say, go away. Unless you came here to learn. And then I'm going to switch over to my Japanese keyboard here and switch over to here. I'm going to type in Nihon Go, which is the Japanese language. And then we'll say, I don't know, I guess we could just make one example here, but I figured what would be good is if we gave it a, what do you call it, a vocabulary list. So here we'll say something like Nin Hon. And then here we have the language Nihongo. So I'm just going to type in Nihongo. And maybe we could even tell it what we want to do. So maybe because we don't know the language, we always want it to supply us with, what do you call it? Romanji. So we have Nihongo, sorry. And then down below here, this would be Nihon Go. So that may be language. And then here we'd have Japan. And maybe we would have the word for learn. So I can go here and say learn, or it's a Japanese dictionary. I should know this word, but take a look here. To learn is, let's make sure that is correct. Yeah, we'll use this one here, which is, well, we can play the audio and we'll hear it.
Manabu.
Manabu. So we'll take Manabu here. We'll go back. And technically, this would be something like Nihongo. What was it again? This one here is Manabu. Okay. Manabu. But technically, it would get conjugated. So here, this wouldn't be exactly accurate. But we'll go over here and just say learn Japanese. Translate to Japanese. This model is a bit smarter, so it'll actually give us a proper example. Oh, okay, so we are pretty close. We're just missing the O. Okay, so we'll go here, and this would be O, even though it's wo. And then the idea here is that we can take this and put this here. And we'd say, oops. To learn. And the funny part is, like, natural speakers might even omit the O, so I wasn't totally wrong. So here's an example of a good prompt, but we only have one, and normally you'd have to give it more than one, like 5 or 10. And you could also give it like a bad prompt. But you know, if we use this and we get a bad prompt, then we could then bring it back here and see if it works. But let's see if this works for it, okay? So I'm gonna go here and just clear it, and let's just say, what's up? Let's see what we get. Stop wasting time and start learning Japanese. Unless you don't want to learn, don't bother me. Okay. Yes, I want to learn. Finally, some motivation. Let's get started. Here are some basic phrases to learn. Konnichiwa, arigato, ohayo gozaimasu, goodbye. Okay. Don't just say okay and do nothing. Please practice phrases until you get them right. Hello, konnichiwa, arigato, ohayo. Okay, I did that. Good. Now practice introducing yourself. So here we kind of have a model, and you can see it works pretty decently. And the great thing about these more inexpensive models is that if you fine tune them, you can get them to work as good or even better as these other ones. And that has to do with adding data. So this is our start here, and I kind of like our prompt document. So I'm going to copy this. I just don't want to lose it. And we're going to go over to our GitHub repo here. And I'm just going to press period here. I'm going to want to store this in here somewhere. So we'll go ahead here and just say, I'll make this, and this will be, LLMs. And I'm going to make a new folder here and just say basic as our start here. And I'm going to call this prompt document or prompt template. You can call it whatever you want. Right now, this is just TXT format because we're not working with anything else. You could technically format this as a markdown file. I like feeding markdown files quite often. But if we go back over to here, okay, so we can see that this model is in good shape. So I'm just trying to think about this for a moment. Yeah, so one thing I think would be nice is if we could save our prompt for later. And I just want to see if we can do that in the prompt catalog. So I know that these are use cases of prompts that we can use, but I wanted to know if we could actually save our prompt here. But it doesn't appear to be that way. And the reason I was looking for that is because over in Amazon Bedrock, you can actually save your prompts for later. And so that's what I was hoping for, but it appears that these are just example prompts. So that's very unexciting. Is there anything else that we might want to do here? I mean, there's lots that we want to do, like deploying to a web app, maybe using prompt flow, adding data. And there are these other sections where we can do some other things. We go down to examples. So here we could provide examples. Let's go here, add examples to show the chat what responses you want. It will try to mimic any response you add here. So make sure they match the rules laid out in the system message. What's interesting is the fact that, I mean, it's only showing one, so it's not very clear. Like if I add one here, can I add more than one? It doesn't really appear that way. But it would be interesting to see how we could work with this programmatically. If we go to view code, here it is. So maybe before we wrap up this video, let's go ahead and see if we can work with this in a programmatic way. So I saw this running from a previous lab, and so I'm just going to open up Jupyter Lab. We did this in the initial setup, so if you haven't done that, go back to that video and watch how to do that. And once that is there, we're going to open up Jupyter Lab, and I'm going to navigate to our AI directory. I'm just doing everything in AI here today. And so I'm going to make a new folder here and call this basic. And in here, I'm going to just double click, and we're going to make a new notebook. And we'll just call this, rename this, whoops. We'll select that and rename it my JP teacher. Okay. So what I want to do here is I want to bring this code over. And I want to break this up a bit because I do not, I do not like everything just crammed here together. So we'll go ahead and do this. And notice it's calling it chat completion. So I'm hoping that it does more than just completion and it's actually having a conversation. There is a difference between a chat completion and completion. Completion just finishes to the end of the sentence. It's not having a back and forth conversation, whereas chat completion is going to have a conversation. So, working through just to break this up here. There we go. And then we'll add one above this. We know this is going to be pip install OpenAI. There we go. And we'll run this next. And we'll go down below here. And so now we just need to replace these 2 points. And it looks like it's already kind of helped us out here. So I'm just going to go and do this because I don't need it like that. We're not grabbing anything from environment variables here today. So those are set. The only thing that's missing here is the credentials. Like we have an endpoint and a deployment, but we don't have in here the API key. So how does this know this is working? Right? So I'm going to go back over to here. And we have the API key. But they didn't show us how to load the API key here, which is kind of annoying. So I'm expecting this to fail, but let's just go proceed through this and see what happens. Okay, so we have this here. And notice this is matching the name of the deployment. When we deployed our model, we could have given it a different name and it would have done something different there. We'll go ahead and run this. We'll go ahead and run this. And we'll go ahead and run this. I'm not expecting this to work. I'm expecting this to say, hey, you need an API key. Right? It goes down here and it says, okay, we'll ignore that. Yep, you do not have permissions. So the code here is fundamentally flawed. So we're going to need a little bit of help here. I'm going to go just copy this over to Sonnet. And I'm going to start a new conversation. I need help with this code. Okay, and I'm just going to submit that code over to Claude. We'll give it a moment. And so from here, I'm going to tell it, it's not, I need to set the API key, but it's not anywhere in the code. And hopefully you can find that for us here. And so hopefully we can just utilize that. So we'll go back over here. And I'm just carefully looking at this here. So remove the lines, token provider. So we'll get rid of this. And it also says get rid of this because we're not using Azure Identity to authenticate. We are going to grab this here and place it as such. We'll take this out of here. I like how they show the API key up here, but it's like they don't give you the code for the API key. It's totally backwards. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do this. That did not copy. Copy, 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 copy. There we go. And we're going to go back over to here. Okay. And that looks good to me. I'm just going to run this again and this one again. And so here we are going to provide the API key instead of the token provider. So we'll run that there. And now we'll run this and see what happens. Great, and we'll print out the contents. And you can see we're getting information back. Okay, so pretty clear. For this to be conversational, I think the way it works is that we keep appending the conversation to it. So that's normally, like, we have messages, and I imagine that we would have a chain of messages here. So here I might say, I'm just going to clear this out here and just say, hello. And let's see what happens here. Whoops, we'll go here and just run that. I'm just going to grab this here so we can just see it quickly like this. And here it says, message, hello, how can I assist you? So I might just want to look up, well, we have completion here, but maybe there's a way we can carry this conversation. So I might go back over to here and just say, okay, how do I carry the conversation past with the completion object? Because we're obviously creating a new chat, and maybe there's a way that we can just keep feeding stuff to it. And here, let's see, we have completion and then return it. And then we're just adding a message. Here it says role system. Okay, great. So from this example, we can go and make a role here and just say role system. And now we can provide the content of our that file there. So I'll just say prompt document. So I'm going to go over here and just say, so I want to load a text file and pass it as the prompt document. My primary language is Ruby, so it's not that I can't figure this out. It's just if they can give me the code here, we'll bring it over here quickly. It's just generating it out here on the right-hand side. And so I want to load my prompt document. I really can't stand when it's trying to make me functions here. But I'm just going to go down one here. And I want this code here, which is for loading a file. And then I need the file path. So I'm looking for that here for the file path. Okay, I suppose I could do that. It'll say file path. I'm just going to hope that this is relative and I don't have to do anything else extra. Usually you do like path, join, whatever. And we've done that quite a few times before. I'm going to open up and see. Yeah, maybe I can just do that here quickly. Yeah, there's something like this. There's a few ways that we can do it. You know, like this, maybe not the best way to do it, but this is how I'm going to do it here. And so here we can just say prompt document, txt. We'll go back over to here. I'll just get this out of the way. And what happened to our prompt document? It's a good thing that we saved it because it looks like it vanished. And by the way, I guess we could have exported this as a prompty file document. It's not necessarily a standard yet or a JSON file. And it would have given us all the information we fed in here and we could have used it later on. Or we could re-upload it again. But, you know, I don't know. I just like saving them individually like this. I find it's easier to work with them in this format. But I'm going to copy that content from the repo. It's a good thing I kept it over here. And we'll go back over to here. And I'm just going to make a new file. I'm going to call this one prompt document. I'm going to double click into it. And we're going to just paste the contents in here. And I'm going to go back over to here. And yeah, so this I'm hoping will load. Well, we don't really want to return the file in this way. We just need to save its content. So down below here, I'm just going to call this prompt document like this, equals. There we go. And still doesn't like it. No file or extra mentioned here. Okay, what if we just... can we just do this, maybe? Can I do this? No such file directory prompt document. I'm just going to rename this to make it really simple. We'll just say system. And I'll rename this to system. Let's see if I can just do this. System. Sometimes simplifying just makes your life easier. No such file or directory system. So I'll go back here and let's just try system like this. Does that work? No. Does this work? No. I'm going to look for another one where I have an example. So let me just see if I can find an example here where I'm loading in a file. Yeah, like I do just that, like path os join. Just going to save this file here quickly. And I'm going to go back. I'm not sure if it matters the context on here on the left-hand side. Basic. Oh, this is supposed to be under LLMs, by the way. Well, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to make a new folder here and just move this around, LLM. And then move basic into it there. There we go. Okay, maybe this context matters. Maybe that's a problem. Now that that prompt file is not in there, so maybe I created it in the wrong directory. Maybe that was my problem the entire time. Maybe you've been watching me and going, Andrew, you're crazy. Are you even paying attention to where you are? No, I am not. That's probably what my problem is. There we go. Okay, great. And we'll go back over to here. I'm going to run this. And so now it's loaded that file. And supposedly we are going to pass it along. But the idea is that we are telling it the order of messages that are happening here, right? So here we have role, hello, and user. Okay, we'll bring this down here. And so we're going to save this, run it. And it's having a bit of trouble because I think that I moved the folder, and so that's kind of my fault. So I'm just going to cut this part out here. Sorry, my fault. And I'm just going to close this. I'm going to say discard. I don't care about this one. I'm going to double click this one. And I'm going to go down here. And I'm just going to paste our update here. My apologies. And then paste this one in here. It looks like it is the same still. Okay, great. There we go. And so now we'll run it here. Here it says invalid syntax. Fair enough. It should have a comma here. And we'll go ahead and run this. And we need a comma on the end here. So we'll try this again. And lots of formatting issues here with me today, eh? So we have, I don't have time for small talk. If you're here to learn, then pay attention. Otherwise, watashi, whatever. And so here we have a reply. So let's go back over to here and take a look at what they're suggesting that we do. So here we have completion, and it just returns the result. So I think every time we want to talk to it, we basically have to keep feeding stuff into it. Also notice that we can change some of our parameters if we need to. Message append. Yeah, and so really that's all we're doing is we just keep appending the message. So if we want to continue the conversation programmatically, what we're going to do is we are going to copy this here. Okay. And then go like this, and then say assistant, right? Okay. And we have some weird highlighting here, so I assume that something is wrong. I'm not sure if it's because we have a double quotation. Oh, we have a double right here. There we go. And it is still complaining. So let's just carefully look at this. Where is our problem? I don't see a problem here, but it seems to think that there is one. Do this, no. And so I'm just going to go here and just take this out for a second. Like that. And no, I don't think there's a problem. I think it's kind of messing it up. So we run this again. What do we get? We get an error. Perhaps you forgot a comma. I don't think so. Just give me a moment to find out my problem, okay? Okay, so maybe the issue is this one here in the end. Nope. Well, I mean, this one doesn't even need a comma there. What does it not like? I cannot. Oh, you know, I found out what it was. I found out what it was. I'm missing one right here. Right here. See? There we go. Okay, great. So here we are now feeding back and saying this is what the system says. So what would it do if we do this? I would expect it not to do anything. And so here it just says stop because there's nothing for it to do. We're waiting for the next roll. And so I'm going to go here and we'll do that. And we'll say user. And we'll say something like, oh, this is hard. So we'll go ahead and run this. So it says, stop whining, learning new language is supposed to be hard, okay? And it kind of feeds in information as we're working through it, which is kind of interesting. So, you know, hopefully you understand that the idea is that we're feeding information into it. And the longer the conversation goes, the more information it is, and then we're going to probably reach an impasse. So understand that when you're working with this stuff, you'll get to a point where the conversation will get too long, and so basically you have to start over. And when you start over, you have to provide it a prompt document, and if you wanted to contextually understand all this stuff, then you have to summarize that previous history, okay? But hopefully that gives you kind of a starting point of how it is to work with LLMs. But that's not all we're going to do here, but for now, this is enough. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this over. Okay, so I'm just going to clear out our keys here for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and reset this. Great. And I'm just going to go ahead and download this file here. And we'll go back over to here. I'm just going to rename this to system, because then it'll just be easier to work with if it's called that, I think. So I'm going to look for in my downloads here and bring over my Japanese teacher. And notice that it is, oh, that's some of the outputs, not that big of a deal. As long as the password's in here, that's all I care about. If you want, you can stop this. I'm not going to stop this because I'm continuously working with this, so I don't want to constantly, I'm going to stop it. I'll just stop it in the next video. I'll have to spin it up, I suppose, but I'm going to stop it here just in case I walk away. But I'm going to leave that model deployed because I want to do maybe a little bit more with it. There is no harm with it being deployed because I'm not currently utilizing it. It's based on per tokens. But anyway, I'll see you in the next one, okay? Ciao.